Welcome to the How to Lead podcast. This is a conversation that's designed to help you become a better leader at work, and maybe it would even be something that you might want to share with your team. I believe deeply that today you're going to want to share this because I've got my good friend Lauren Seymour on the podcast. Lauren, hello.
Hello, Clay.
This is so great because Lauren and I have really developed a great friendship. We went to church together for a while, and
Well, I went to your church, Clay.
Okay, it was definitely not my church. It's as much yours as it is mine, that's for sure. But at the time, you were what would your title have been? VP of Sales at Dentsply Sirona?
No, at the time I was VP of Sales at Phillips when I started going to Buckhead.
When you started going to Buckhead Church.
Yes.
Yeah.
When we met, I was the VP of Dentsply.
Dentsply.
Yep.
Yeah. Dentsply is a $2 billion. Is that fair?
More
$2
than
billion?
that. It was $4 billion, right around $4 billion.
Whoa. Okay. Selling into dental offices. I love anytime I play golf with a dentist or meet a dentist socially, I love saying, "Oh, Dentsply Sirona," and they've all got Dentsply stuff in there.
Every dental office in the world has some Dentsply Sirona stuff in it.
And then now you're at a remarkable company. I'll never forget the day that we met when you said we got to talk, and you told me about your switching jobs. Insulet. You guys are making a remarkable difference in the world of in the world that serves the men and women who have diabetes. Tell that story of what sold you on Insulet, because I thought this was such a great. This is such great brand. It's a great brand testimonial for Insulet as to why you decided to make that switch.
Yeah, I actually I had a huge team at Dentsply. We had about 1,200 people and 9 different divisions. It was a very challenging job. It was a very fulfilling job. And I got this call from an executive recruiter about this opportunity at Insulet. And I was like, no, I'm not interested. I'm sitting put where I am. And she kept calling me. And she kept calling me, and she got me when I was getting the cab coming home from the airport. And I said, okay, what do you want me to do? She said, just have 2 conversations for me, 2 conversations. And I met with the VP of HR, and then I met with the GM over the U.S. business. And in both of those conversations, the passion and commitment of these people to change the lives of people living with diabetes, I remember in the second conversation with who was my boss, I hung up the phone and I walked out of that office and I said, oh boy, I'm in trouble. I didn't want to leave Dentsply, but I will tell you this company has something special. And I did some research on my own. I talked to some friends of mine who had kids with type 1.
This is the part that I remember so vividly.
Yeah.
Is that you just thought, all right, I'm just going to ask some people that I know.
I'm going to ask a couple of people that I know that have kids with type 1. And I called my friend Mary and I said, hey, Mary, what does Riley use to manage her diabetes? And she said, well, she used to use a competitor pump. And she said, and recently she switched to this thing called Omnipod. And Lauren, it has changed her life. And I was like, really? Tell me more. Then I called another friend of mine whose son was a type 1 and said the same thing. And she said, he uses Omnipod. He can swim. He does sports. He runs races. I can sleep at night because I'm not worried about him going low. It's the greatest thing in the world. And I interviewed with probably 11 to 12 different senior leaders at Insulet. And every single one I spoke to was so passionate and committed to the mission of changing these people's lives. I just couldn't say no. And it's been a gift beyond all gifts to be here and to see a product that when you share this product with a provider and it goes on a patient, the number of emails and letters we get back about changing a caregiver's life or changing a person with diabetes life, it's so rewarding to see the impact you have on actual patients.
That is so great. I think that I was so moved when we had that conversation. I remember thinking, wow, you have to go do this. Of course, this makes total sense to go work for a company that is so passionate. I'm gonna the kids call it glaze, Lauren, when you throw a lot of compliments on someone. Oh. But this particular episode, I knew when I decided I'm going to start interviewing some of these remarkable business leaders that I've met through getting to speak at their organizations. I've gotten to speak a few times at Dentsply with you, and then a couple of times at Insulet as well. And you are one of the most remarkable leaders that I have ever met.
Clay.
And here's what I wanted to talk about today. The thing that is, I wish I could take the 14 people listening to this podcast. I wish I could take each one of you to one of Lauren's sales meetings so that you could feel the way her team responds to her. They love her, and they will run through a wall. I mean, it reminds me of like one of those football coaches that these players would talk about. Like, I would have done anything for this coach, and I'd run through a wall for the coach. That's the way people feel when they get to work for you. Give us just scale, size. How many people are on your sales team as we're talking right now?
Here at Insulet, out in the field sales, I have about 450, I guess, in my inside sales team, about 250. I have the training team. I have a couple of ancillary teams. I mean, it's 600, 700 people.
Okay. The thing that I told you that I wanted to talk about was to me, it's a rarity to find a boss that knows how to have the appropriate relationship with your direct reports. I've been around your direct reports. I've met with a lot of them individually because now I've gotten to know you all so well. They'll pass through in Atlanta and we'll get together for a drink or something. I've been together at one of your meetings. The meeting you had in Nashville was just you and your direct reports. You have a friendship with these people. It's not just, oh, the big bad boss is coming into the room. I mean, you know all about their lives. They know all about your life. That's what I really wanted to talk about today is it possible to be friends with the people that work directly for you? And then on the flip side, is it possible to be friends with your boss? But let's take the first one first. After I sent you that, I assume you had a little bit of time to think about it. What's your high level perspective on, is it possible to be friends with the people that work for you?
I believe it is possible, but I also know there are other people that believe it is not possible. There's a lot of people that feel like in senior leadership positions, it's the most lonely position, right? Because you really can't make friends with the people that you work with. I somewhat disagree with that because I believe that if you are your authentic self and if you have a servant leader mentality and you get to know your people as people and what drives them and what they need from you, that a relationship just develops. And I think there's a difference between, people tell me all the time, I'm a lover. I'm a big hugger and I go into these big meetings and I think last week I gave out like 400 hugs. I love to see people engaged in the work they do and being successful. I think where people misunderstand that concept is that if you are friends with them, you cannot hold them accountable. And I don't believe that to be true. Because I love them and because I know them, I find it easier to hold them accountable. Because when I give someone feedback or someone gives me feedback, if I've got that trust relationship and they know that I am there to A, serve them and B, make them better, that when I have feedback to deliver, it is that relationship we have built that allows that feedback to land. And I believe I'm accountable to giving feedback. And sometimes it's hard. But the relationship you develop with someone, if it's done correctly and with the right boundaries, it becomes a personal relationship. But the professional part is somewhat separate in that it's my job to hold them accountable and assure that they deliver and that they grow as a leader.
I want to take those in a couple different parts, but one, you started talking about authenticity. I want to talk about the relationship part, about building that friendship. How do you think about that in your mind? How do you think about authenticity? Because you don't share about every aspect of your life.
No.
You don't let them in on everything.
No.
But what does that look like for you to be an authentic leader while not becoming too transparent, I guess?
I think as a senior leader, there are things you can share and there are things you can't share. And that's just part of the job. But there's opportunity to ask for input, right? And to be able to have conversations with your team so that you are working on something as a team. So the authenticity means you can come to me if I'm going to ask you about an idea and we're going to work together on an idea and we have a trust triangle. You can disagree with me about what I think we should do. I want to hear what you think we should do, right? What are the things that will make us better? And their input is so valuable to helping us craft the right strategy. So I think a lot of leaders sometimes push direction down. I like to build direction up. Here's what we're thinking about doing. What do you guys think about this idea? And the idea may be in the trust triangle of my leadership team. Like, I'm not sure if this is the best direction to go here. Here are some options. Let's talk about them. And that allows people to feel like you are authentically including them in decisions that are going to impact the strategy and the future of the company.
Why do you call it a trust triangle?
Because they have to trust me. And if I'm going to share with them some thoughts about, hey, what do you think if we tried to do this? I have to trust them. It's not ready to be distributed. Strategy is not made. We're in the sausage making phase. I have to trust them that they're going to be honest, that they're going to share their concerns, that they're going to alert me to things that might get in the way of us being successful with that, so we can mitigate all the challenges before it happens. So I'm trusting them to help us create, and they trust me because I've asked them to help us create. So I don't like to have things created and then just surprise the team and bring it down without really vetting the solution and getting their wise counsel, which is important to us being successful.
Okay, you all have had, in the last couple of years, you've had a lot of changes. There's been leadership changes. There's been staffing, the way you're organized, some of that's changed. How do you balance being authentic and sharing what you feel while also leading them well and keeping them engaged with where things are headed?
Whenever you're trying to manage through change, and change happens in the medical sales, in the medical business arena, in the marketplace all the time, because technology changes and new products come into the market. It is always an evolving market. And we at Insulet, we're at a high growth company. So we're growing every single year, and the market is evolving and our customers' needs are evolving. So it's almost like every single year we have to react to that change, and we have to do some things strategically that can help us be successful in the face of those changes. I think when you're leading that with your team, you have to make sure that they understand the reason for the change. Anybody can buy into the change if they understand the reasons behind it and it's being done for good. And that, to me, is how I get my team engaged in change. You know, Clay, we have expanded every single year since I've been here. We just keep growing. And every time you expand a sales team, their territories change. Their relationships change. The providers they called on are no longer in their territory, and they kind of got to start over. It's tough for them. Yeah. But when they know that there are more people that need our product, and we keep adding people because there's so many more lives to change, but it affects you. So people have to really understand the why behind it. And once they do that, they can get on board. And you know, one thing you always said, when you're having conversations about change and people are pushing back and they don't understand, the pushback alone and the opportunity for them to have the opportunity, as you say, to weigh in, even if they don't buy in, okay, they got to weigh in so that they can buy in. So if they don't buy in, that they can eventually go forward with the direction that we're going.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've watched you navigate that in some really tricky situations. I've watched you navigate it really, really well. Let's talk about that accountability piece. So, I've also found, I think this might be worth anybody who is listening thinking through this. It feels like people lean one way or the other. It feels like some people are natural at the relationship building and have a harder time holding people accountable. And then you got the taskmasters they're good at holding people accountable. They might need to turn up their relationship. I think for every one of us, being able to identify which way you lean is really important. When it comes to holding people accountable, hard conversations, you mentioned it is the relationship that builds this bridge, in a sense, that you're able to carry that difficulty or the hard conversation, and because of that relationship. What can you think of one you've had recently? Obviously, you don't have to name who it was. I'm sure it wasn't Tamika on your team. But think of a hard conversation that you've had recently What can you help people with? What can you learn? What are you learning about it? What's worth passing along of what you've been trying to work
I
through?
actually just had one this week, Clay, and it was to deliver some feedback on a presentation that was done, and I wasn't there. And I gathered feedback from the team, and the
Ooh.
feedback was not as positive as I had hoped it would be. And
And
this
this
is
is a
someone,
tenured
this
teammate
is
that's
a
been around for a
tenured
while.
teammate, and this is an amazing leader. And having to go back and deliver that feedback, the best way I can tell you is I was going to deliver it, and I was going to deliver it quickly. I'm in a meeting all week long. I did not want to wait till I got home. I wanted to deliver it quickly because if you wait too long to deliver feedback, it loses its impact.
Mm.
So I sat down and I thought specifically, how am I going to do this? What questions am I going to ask him about what he thought, and
Yep.
really get his perspective, and then share some feedback with him? I can tell you it is the relationship that I have with them that allows them to take that feedback and accept it. And it went
Be-
very, very well.
because he knows Lauren is for me.
That's what I'm saying. He knows Lauren is for him. He knows
Yeah.
Lauren is giving him this feedback for his good, for his development. It is not in a demeaning or punitive way. It is in a development, and I do my best to give feedback that is challenging in a positive way so that change can be made, so that growth can happen. I think if you do that all along, if you do that all along and you're not surprising someone, that's where the two get confused, the relationship and the accountability. If you have a relationship with someone and you are never holding them accountable, and then someone comes to you and says, hey, you've not been holding this person accountable, but you haven't been giving them any feedback all the way along, you can't just jump in and then just crush them. It's like, it's like what we say, the performance review should not be the first time
Where
someone
they hear
sees
that,
that
right?
they've had some
Right.
challenges along the way. You have to build that again along the way. So I think that the relationship you build, the care you have for the people you work with, that goes hand in hand with your responsibility to hold them accountable and make them successful.
So some of the people that work for you, my guess is you make every relationship look natural. But I'm sure they're not all natural. I'm sure not.
Not.
I'm sure there are some that come natural that you're like, yeah, we would actually be friends. And then there are some that you're like, I mean, I guess we could be friends. I don't know.
Everybody has those at work. There are people
Right.
that you naturally are drawn to. Their personality, their business acumen, their skills in a certain area you may not have, you're drawn to that. But people's personalities and their leadership styles are very, very different. And there are people that I have to adjust my leadership style for to a certain degree, especially, it's one thing, I always said when you lead folks, you lead in three directions. You lead above you, you lead those behind, you lead those below you, and you lead your peers. You have three different ways you have to interact with people. It's easy for me to lead across, and it's easy for me to lead down. We've all had leaders before where we may not see eye to eye with their approach. But I always try to find something about a leader, even if we don't see eye to eye, that I can learn from, I can grow from, and I try to focus on that and not the things that we may not see eye to eye on. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, what makes sense about it is even when you feel like there's not natural chemistry, is there something I can be curious about?
Yeah.
Is there something I can find that I can go, you know what? We might not be grabbing drinks all the time after work together, but there's a reason why we're in each other's lives because I want to learn this from you. I think that's a great, anytime it's reframing the relationship to give you a sense of purpose in a way on why I would want to lean in even more and have this relationship. I think it's a great mental trick.
Are at work are very business oriented, and I have a lot of them. They are down to business. They're not personal. We're getting something accomplished. We're working together on a project. I may know them well. I may not know them well, but there's not a personal relationship there. I think, my style as a leader is to have personal relationships with those that I directly lead, because I believe that relationship allows all of the things we talked about, the trust, the care, the ability to hold accountable, to give feedback, to coach. It just makes that relationship stronger. And my job is to grow them as leaders. That's my job. And to do that, I have to know who they are as people.
Great. All right. So you said it's possible to be friends with people that work for you and yet still hold them accountable. As we wrap up, let's talk about that relationship with the boss. What would you say to somebody that's working for somebody and they're going, I don't know if I can be friends with my boss? Like maybe she's just not open to it.
With your boss. You don't have to be friends with your boss. What you have to do is work hard for your boss for the sake of the company and for the sake of your team. And I have had bosses before, not many, so I'm very, very fortunate that I did not connect with in any way. But we had different personalities, we had different styles, but there is something they are bringing to the table. And my job is to figure out what is that something that I can provide for them and they can provide for me so that we have a good working relationship. We may never be friends, but we have to work together and we have a job to do. So you kind of have to just find that thing. And I've had a couple where, I've been like, oh man, we just not connecting. But at the same time, I can think of one at Philips. Oh, so wickedly intelligent. And I was like, I got to get some of that. I got to get some of that. I want to learn more of the business acumen of this particular business from this person. And I'm going to lean into that. And in the meantime, I'm going to make sure that I make this person successful.
Yeah. Well, I've also watched you with one particular boss that you had in previous roles where you weren't sure if it was going to work out.
Yeah.
And then over time, things got a little warmer. And by the end of it, it seemed like you really had that strong relationship. But I think what I hear you say is whether you can be friends or whether you can't with your boss, don't focus on that. Focus on doing a good job, serving that person well. And if the relationship happens to foster, it's icing on the cake in that regard.
Yes, that's kind of the situation I was talking about. There wasn't a connection, but I wanted to serve well and I wanted to learn. And when I'm focusing on my job first and the job I was hired to do, that's what could impact the relationship, because I'm not going to be worried that we're not going to be BFFs and that we don't have the same style and that, I'm going to work on the communication so that we can work well together and we're going to be able to exceed and excel for the company.
That's great. Well, Lauren, thank you. Thanks for being a friend. Thanks for referring me to Kennedy. Lauren put me on to one of the best airport transfer drivers in Atlanta. He's fantastic. If you're outside of Atlanta, this is not going to be helpful, but shout out to Kennedy. I get in the car with him a couple weeks ago, Lauren, after you sent me his contact. And I was like, so Kennedy, Lauren, you've helped her out some. And he goes, Lauren's my boss. I work for Lauren. I was like, I like that.
It's so funny because that's an example. He is someone, I got him off of a ride share service. He came to pick me up one day and he said, I'm starting my own business and I really want to get into the business. I said, Kennedy, I know so many people. Let me help you. Let me refer you to some people that I know that travel all the time and give me a cost structure. Let's talk about it. And, he started off, he's got this big, beautiful car. You saw it, this big old GMC. And he's like, I'll just charge him whatever an Uber charges me. I'm like, yeah, no, we can't do that. And just helping him grow his business. And now I think he has 5 or 6 people that, I've been able to give him to do this. So that's why I always call and say, Kennedy, I need you to pick me up. You're probably busy, but could you please? And he does.
And he's like, of course, Lauren's my boss. I think at one point he also said she's my business partner at this point. So anyway, I hope those of you that are listening, I hope you get the chance one day to get to meet Lauren, give her a hug in person. But you are a remarkable leader. Thanks for the time you spent on this podcast. If you're on LinkedIn, people can connect with you on LinkedIn.
Absolutely.
You're very active on LinkedIn. I appreciate that. You've challenged me to be more active. You've given me some accountability to be more active on LinkedIn. Thank you for that. But thanks for the conversation today.
Thank you, Clay, and thank you for everything you're doing to drive leadership and servant leadership and, leadership at home or at work. It just goes such a long way if you do it right.
Well, my pleasure. Forward this to somebody that you know, send it to your team. I hope it'll be helpful for you. It is possible to have a real friendship with the people that you directly report, that you directly manage. I think that's a pretty significant insight. So, Lauren, have a great day. Thanks.
Thank you.